Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. This is Dungeon Zoology, an evolutionary approach. I hope everybody is ready for a PowerPoint about weird stuff what animals do. Because that's what we got.
Yeah.
Astrid, would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Astrid Lundberg. I make fun facts videos on the internet. I am a professional science yapper, answering a question nobody has been brave enough to ask, which is, what if young Sheldon was a butch chick with dinosaur autism? I make TikTok videos with the username OddPride and some other things. No. And I'm too close to the microphone. Thanks. Am I good?
Yeah, keep talking.
And I'm so good at technology and definitely competent to be a distance from a microphone. I make TikTok videos with the username OddPride and also on Instagram as Astrid_Lundberg, and I'm on YouTube as one of those things. Just, I don't know, Google my full name and you'll find it, I think.
Do you want to also drop the shark cave thing?
Right. Also, I do excavation for the Park Service as a paleontological excavator. I do some work at the Maryland Dinosaur Park, which is a late early Cretaceous terrestrial megafauna site. There's cool big dinosaurs. Do you know Acrocanthosaurus? We have her there. That's really cool. Also, recently, I got to go to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky and get some Permian period shark fossils out of there, and that was really cool.
For all of the dinosaur nerd posers in the audience, that is older than all the dinosaurs. So that's crazy.
So
it's me, I'm the fake fan.
Permian, so, okay, the age of these sharks is, the thing about these sharks, right? So cast your mind back through the generations, your own ancestry, through your mother's 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 mother. Keep following that line. When you get to the place where your great-great-great many greats grandmother is the same animal as the many greats grandmother of birds and lizards, that's the Permian.
And yeah, they had some big old sharks.
Who are you, Irene?
Hello. My name's Irene Zielinski, and I write role-playing games. Scurvy Buggers is sort of found family romance in the Golden Age of Piracy. You can find it at the 9th Level Games booth. I also work for Steve Jackson Games, doing various development-y things. Yeah. All right.
She also studies psychology and in a lot of niches knows more about evolution than I do. So this is useful for me.
Yeah, a lot of our early conversations were me just sending snippets of class readings, and then when I felt like I didn't need an excuse to message her anymore, I quit doing the readings for that class. Anyway, this is a panel of facts. We have left a lot of time for banter involved. I am sure that our lovely audience members also know some fun facts about some of the things that we're talking about and also might have questions. I don't believe in waiting until the end for Q&A. So if you have a question or you know some stuff that we haven't mentioned, hit the microphone and we will call on you when there is a moment. All right.
Let's go.
First up, content warning.
Did you know that animals are horrible?
Yeah.
You can trust me, I'm a science communicator.
There's an animal in this PowerPoint that might be a little disturbing. We'll give you a heads up, but we are going to be talking about mating, conflict, predation.
Content warning, the cutest bird you've ever seen.
Yeah, so we'll give you a heads up if there's any pictures, but yeah. All right. So, your party of adventurers has set up camp for the night in a dark forest. Campfire's out, there's smoke, the starlights, and you hear sort of a distant flapping, many wings, and then smacking noises, a lot. There's so many bodies in the air, and you hear a sort of high-pitched something between a whine and a honk, and just the collisions of bodies as you look around your campsite and think, dear God, what is happening? So a lot of animals do a thing called lek mating, which is sort of a competitive rave display.
Yeah, a lot of people like to call it a bird disco, but it's not just birds that do it. It's best known in birds, like our friend the sage grouse up there in his fancy dress, which evolution furnished him with. They like to strut around making horrible noises and puffing themselves up, and then the female birds quietly watch from the sidelines. It looks like a male-dominated behavior, and it is an intensely female-dominated behavior. It is entirely down to female mate choice, and it is up to the male birds to be the sexiest bird in the bird disco.
Yeah.
Some mammals do it. Did you know? Sorry, I cut you off.
Go on.
A lot of the time, when you hear a sentence, when a textbook hits you with a sentence like, all mammals except, or no mammals except, the exception's a bat. It's always a bat. Bats love to evolve weird.
And bats are also, like, incredibly biodiverse. Like, a startling percentage of the species of mammals are bats. We love to be
25%.
little guys. Thank you.
25% of mammal species are bats, and 50% are rodents. So you're either bat, rodent, or weird if you're a mammal.
Yeah, it's derived from Swedish, which is fun.
Att leka,
Which is, yeah.
to play.
But, like, specifically, like, no rules goofing around kind of play, right? That's what Wikipedia
Yeah, like
said.
child's play.
Yeah. And
There's a different word for more like playing an instrument or a sport.
Not to immediately get super in the weeds, but there is a fun thing about lekking, which is the sort of lek paradox, which is that in evolutionary biology, it is kind of surprising that leks don't do totally runaway selection. Like, typically, if there's that strong female mate choice, you just get a huge reduction in biodiversity because everybody wants the same thing, roughly. But in this case, like, it looks like the behaviors that are getting rewarded have so many different contributors genetically that it doesn't reduce the diversity.
Torpedo the genetic diversity of the species.
But yeah, so bats do this. There's some sheep that do it as well.
I didn't know.
Yeah, because I thought it was just bats until we were making the PowerPoint, which wasn't the wee hours of the morning today,
It's the
by the
knowledge
way.
that came out after I crashed at 4:30.
No, but yeah, it's bovidae also do it, so like rams and stuff, and seals, sea lions, pinnipeds sometimes do leks, which I bet sound awful.
I bet that gets violent too.
Anyway, we were thinking about it. You know, do you love stirges?
What if there were so many of them all in the
Because-
same place having a horrible rave disco?
Because insects do it, and bats do it, you know, so
Birds do it, bees do it.
So yeah, if you ever want to encounter a stirge swarm in the worst possible way.
And the other stirges think they're so sexy.
Yeah.
Which will not affect the way that your game is going, but you'll just have to know that.
Yeah. Like, oh no, we have walked into these things, you know, the carnival, and now we're gonna get eaten about it.
Maybe this is a good time to mention that I'm a fake fan. I don't know anything about games. So we were doing the preparation for this talk, and I got very carried away thinking about weird behaviors that dungeon monsters could do. These dungeon monsters, the existence of which I had known for like a matter of weeks, maybe. So I came up with a scenario that Irene kindly informed me is not going to help do interesting gameplay. Your guy can't interact with it. But maybe you can think of something better, something more interesting and more interact-withable.
Yeah, she
to
told
take
this
this.
story. I lost my mind for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, that isn't a thing that we can.
I've just written a cutscene.
Yeah,
Okay, but hear me out.
if anyone can animate I will mail you a dice chain.
I insist upon presenting this horrible scenario. So hear me out. So your guy is exploring the dungeon, and your guy comes to a doorway. It's very important your guy has not entered this room yet. And about, like, on the other side of the room, there is this beautiful, ornate, leather-bound book. And your guy thinks, great, maybe that's for me. But before he can enter the room and make a grab at this book, it reveals itself to be a horrible, terrifying mimic. Its horrible tentacles start coming out of it. It opens up, you know, the teeth, the whole 9 yards. It is not doing this to prey on your character. It's not doing this for any obvious reason. It starts snapping its horrible teeth, and with each snap, it turns into a bigger, more ornate book. It kind of looks like it's turning into a treasure chest for a second, and then it turns back, and then it turns into, like, a sort of, like an early generation AI-generated art when they were, like, completely incoherent, just like the concept of some kind of amalgam of enticing treasure, unbounded by the rules of the way that human beings would construct leather-bound books or treasure chests or, like, bags of treasure. Maybe it sprays some gold and then it turns back into a book, nonsense words ripple across the cover, and then it flops open. I happen to have a book with me. It flops open with, like, the pages all standing up in a fan shape, and they're sort of pulsing with horrible colors. And then the treasure chest next to it also turns into the same thing and strikes the exact same pose. And they start hopping around each other. And then they hop away and leave you unharmed. I just think, how would a shapeshifter do a bird of paradise mating dance? Thank you. It could be so weird. So, mating dances are really common among birds, and they get really elaborate and interesting and weird among birds. So we already discussed lek mating, where you get a whole bunch of males all doing kind of similar dances while females observe. There are also a lot of sort of call and response or duo mate selection dances. Like in albatrosses, they do these really, really adorable, endearing, like, they do like a neck shimmy, and then the other one will copy it, or it won't, and that's a cold shoulder, and then you need to go find a different albatross wife. Also, albatrosses can be gay. They love to be gay, actually. Birds be doing behaviors. What's the next slide? Oh, I know what the next slide is.
Yeah, you can keep talking about birds doing behaviors. It'll be a great segue. How many emotions do you have about lace-on albatrosses?
So many. Okay, so you know albatrosses, right? The largest living flight-capable birds. The wandering albatross has a 12-foot wingspan. They can glide for about 6 hours without losing very much altitude, without needing to flap. They hunt in a way that takes them to sea for weeks at a time.
And biologically also make ships lucky, which is why you're not allowed to kill them also if you're a pirate. Just another evolution fact for you.
Yeah, this is why pair bonding and mate selection is so high stakes in albatrosses, because albatross chicks can't survive without two parents. Because if you have a parent who's going to spend weeks at sea going, like, circling around the ocean looking for fish, a chick would starve to death or die of exposure in the time it took its single parent to come back. So they have to have two parents, which is why sometimes you get female-female pair bonding, because sometimes you get albatross colony. Did you know that male albatrosses are, like, they suffer from a little bit of stupid? So you get a lot of albatross colonies that are mostly female, and they deal with that with the power of lesbianism, and I think that's beautiful. And this is supposed to be about role-playing games.
It is fun when you tell us facts, though. When you say sometimes, what percentage of the bonded pairs are lesbians?
I think 25% of the bonded pairs of lace-on albatross on the island of Oahu are comprised of two females. So it's really widespread.
Yeah.
There's a different kind of albatross that does a lot of male-male pair bonding, and I'm not sure what's up with that. Probably something similar. Anyway.
It turns out there's actually a lot of different evolutionary reasons that like being gay is selected for. There's just a lot. There's the snakes that want to wake up and have after hibernation, and so you have better chances of that if you've got a cuddle buddy.
Yeah, you get male-male bonding in some kinds of snakes, because it makes them less likely to freeze to death in the hibernation period.
And all sorts of things. This one, again, our next bit will, I promise, tie back at least a smidgen into like something you can add to your game lore.
Okay, so I have been informed that there's lizard folk. I have it on good authority. This is a thing that exists, yes? Parthenogenesis is this real cool thing where you can make not you, I wish, one, if one is a reptile usually, can make a baby using just an egg cell. Many reptiles, including some birds actually, can do this under some circumstances.
Cloning.
There are a few species of obligate parthenogenetic lizards. Obligate means they have to. This is the only way that they can reproduce. Parthenogenesis is making a baby using just an egg. Pop quiz. Puzzle. What trait would a species have to have in order for it to be an obligate parthenogenetic species? Yeah, what's up?
Almost.
Almost. They're all female.
Yeah.
So this has evolved a bunch of times in the genus Aspidoscelis and its closest relatives, which are the whiptail lizards. They live in this country, actually, but further west, unfortunately. You can't pet them here. This is also real. It's also evolved in mourning geckos, and that's really cool because these guys are less related than humans and platypuses. So this is something that just can pop up in any reptile lineage, which means that if you have like playable reptile people, you could have all female lizards. Also, just a fun fact, just a really exciting fun fact about this. So they don't need to engage in courtship and mating behaviors to reproduce. They still do. Kind of just for fun.
Well, it does sort of prompt ovulation in one of them. I don't remember
all of them.
Which position, but yeah, so it makes them more fertile. They're not exchanging any like genetic information.
Are you insinuating something with that language?
They just get into it, right? Like that's...
They're not raw. It's like a...
Tell us about the whiptails. Tell us about the behaviors.
Okay, so...
In a family-friendly way.
Okay, so you'll have a lizard, right? And then you'll have another lizard. So far, so simple? And one of them will start like hassling the other and harassing her. And kind of bullying her and biting her and like mock beating her up. And the other lizard sort of mock resists and then gets into it. And it triggers a hormonal process that makes them lay healthier eggs more frequently. I think they're having a better time than a lot of us humans.
So the deal is, just
raise your hand if you want to go to there.
That is exactly what I was going to ask. And would this, hypothetically, would Wonder Woman
be a lizard?
Be a lizard.
God, yes.
Headcanon accepted.
If you draw fan art of this, Irene at sjgames.com, please. If you animate any mimic courtship dances, Irene at sjgames.com. Do it for the community.
Okay, so next we were thinking about the kinds of horrible, big, scary animals that you get in your game bestiary. Oh, it looks like we have another question coming up. What's up?
No, I just want to make a comment. It would be very cool for Wonder Woman to be a lizard, but she's made of clay. She was crafted out of clay by Hippolyta.
But if Hippolyta was a lizard,
Yeah,
then she would simply make her lizard-shaped.
correct.
Made in
correct.
the image of
She
the
absolutely, Hippolyta could have been. We just know where Wonder Woman came from.
That's a very good point, thank you. All right, so
I love nerds. Okay, so
consider the Shrike.
this is what the content warning was for.
Yeah.
Well, that and the freaky lizards.
Yeah, well, okay, so, there's a lot of birds and bird monsters, especially in like classic D&D. You've got Rocs, you've got giant eagles, there's, a lot of harpies, all sorts of scary, big ol' birds of prey. And they're the big versions of birds of prey that we already find pretty big and scary, which kind of leaves out some really choice murderous psychopath animal behavior. Is the deadliest predator in the world by mass is that little cat, right? Yes. It's like the fluffy kitten. What's she called?
It's sand cat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a fun fact. Yeah, so sometimes predators are adorable and terrifying.
I do know this one.
Yeah.
It's the Blackfoot forest cat.
Thank
you so much. I love
I
PAX
did not
Unplugged.
have that one in my brain pockets. Thank you for providing it.
Yeah, you guys rule.
Yeah, I think it's not by mass, it's by hunting trip. They're more
yeah.
likely to make a kill on any given hunting expedition than any other predator.
the best KD ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so so eagles are scary because they are large, and they would be scarier if they were larger.
These guys. Go on.
Sometimes evolution, just the randomness of our Mother Earth, makes a creature so cute and fluffy
All right.
and so horrible.
I think we should just show them the pictures.
Yeah, so this is what these guys get up to.
So shrikes love to,
Impale.
yeah. They love spiky trees and bushes, and they murder smaller, less fortunate animals, sometimes other birds, mammals, reptiles, nobody's safe.
And their prey can be almost as large as the shrike itself, which
And-
is, just add that to your fact list.
And they make horrible little macabre decorations.
Yeah, so they save them for later by sticking the corpse of their prey on a spike.
So-
It doesn't have to be a naturally occurring spike. They do this with barbed wire fences that are man-made also.
Which is, I love.
So why would they do a thing like this?
So there's a few reasons. Obviously.
Predation is a pretty unstable way of making a living. Sometimes you're successful a lot if you're a cute little cat, but often you're not. So if you get 2 birds now, 0 birds later, you might want to save one.
And, it's like hanging in the air. It's, drying a little bit. It'll be okay for a few days, right?
Also, the males do this more often than the females, which is because the females think it's sexy of them. This is the reason for a lot of weird animal behavior. Just
Yeah. If there's, and in like paleontology especially, if there's a confusing bit of an animal and we're like, what could that be for?
yeah, this is actually
Display feature.
it's actually how you tell apart paleontology and archaeology. Is if the inexplicable nonsense is called a display structure, you're talking to paleontologists, and if they say ritual purposes, those are archaeologists.
So again, another story time, right? You are reaching the edge of a thick wood, and the biggest blackthorn briar trees you've ever seen are around. And, you'd been sort of menaced maybe by wild boars or peccaries earlier in the session or a week ago, foreshadowed, and you see one of them just impaled on a spike in this tree. And there's maybe an adventurer or two from many years ago, just a skeleton now in the tree. And were you demonstrating?
Just had to strike a good corpse pose. I don't like human corpses, so Irene wasn't allowed to put any in the slideshow. So I could demonstrate instead.
Favorite part of going to a museum with you is we get to the front desk and Astrid goes up to information and says, "Hey, I have a question for you. Do you have human mummies? If so, where are they?"
Usually when a weird little lesbian asks you that question, it's because she wants to look at them.
She wants to see them.
No,
But
I just have a phobia,
yeah, this one is like, okay, I'm not going there. Yeah, so no, I wasn't expecting corpse gymnastics. That was.
So anyway.
But the final reason is that they're little guys, so they have to put their little trophies from their psychopathic murder hunting.
Because they can't defend their kill from the larger
Yeah, because
birds.
otherwise a bigger, scarier bird is just gonna come get it. So like, if you would like to foreshadow a griffin, maybe first have some shrikes whose hiding of their kills in particularly thorny branches means that there is someone they have to hide it from.
Ooh, one more fact about shrikes. I want to hear your comment or question first, though.
Just a quick question. Do they take them down, or do they like keep them up there while they?
I think they eat them down. I think they take
eat them. They
yeah.
actually, so they use the
Unless they do it like a buffet.
So they use the spike to save the kill for later and to impress other birds, as we've already discussed. They also use it to like tear apart the body of their prey so that they can get it into, because they hunt animals that are almost as large as they are.
Like a kebab.
Exactly.
Rotating.
So, and they, tragically, these little birds, they don't have thumbs. And so.
Tragically, thankfully, we wouldn't be safe.
Okay, so the bird needs some help, like, getting its prey into chunks that it can swallow. So it'll, like, stick it on a spike and then tear off pieces of it. Which is also quite gross and scary if you imagine, like, a giant shrike being a problem for your adventurers. If shrikes weren't horrifying enough, they also, they're songbirds. They sing to attract mates. They also sing all the way through the winter in the not breeding season. And somebody did some research on this and came to the conclusion that they do it because it lures other birds to them for eating.
Yeah.
For impaling and dismemberment. Yes.
2-word horror story, Shrike Aarakocra.
Hold on, before you go. You should probably explain to Astrid what an Aarakocra is.
I was going to ask you to explain it. I would love you to explain it also.
Bird folk.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Bird folk, bird
They're like,
people.
they're buff eagle dudes, basically.
Ooh, okay. Cool. I think those.
Well, I learned something new a second ago, too.
I have just a regular bird question. Do they kill the birds and the lizards with the spike, or do they kill them in another way and then spike them?
They kill them in advance.
They get them first, and then they
Do that.
Yeah, it's basically impossible to fly with living prey that's almost your size.
Yeah.
A perfect segue to my question. How do they get them on the spike if they don't have thumbs?
Just kind of. I wasn't expecting to kill it so much at the physical comedy. That's
So what you're saying here is the most psychopathic thing that an adventurer could come across is a black-footed shrike griffin?
Shriffin. Yes?
I'm just thinking because dinosaurs
Dangerous
and
work.
birds kind of like have history.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dragon lore came out of dinosaurs.
Yes.
What would be like a pseudo-dragon leaving their little preys behind, leading up to a big dragon? Because there's different types of dragon, the ones that just have the wings rather than the 4 legs. Leaving their like a caravan just dangling from a tree or something, and then you just come across it and you're like, what is this? And then all of a sudden this like giant dragon emerges. Or better yet, there's an ancient dragon that killed a much younger adult dragon who's impaled on a spike of a giant tree.
Yeah, you're good at this, I suspect.
I do this professionally, unfortunately.
Makes sense.
So if they lure their prey in with singing in the winter, that's basically like a siren. You could imagine sirens luring their prey in and just putting them on spikes too.
Yeah. Love that.
So there's this really fun and sexy concept in evolutionary biology called convergent evolution. You know how, okay, so if you're making a sandwich, if you follow me on this journey, if you're making a sandwich, and you're putting Nutella in your sandwich, you're gonna spread it into a nice thin, like even flat layer to make the sandwich. If you're making a peanut butter sandwich, you're gonna spread it into an even flat layer to make a sandwich. That doesn't mean that peanut butter and Nutella are the same substance, it just means that's the shape that they need to be sandwiched. Evolution is also like that, so any behavior or trait or instinct that can evolve in one lineage because it's useful could evolve in any lineage. So your like horrible shrieking monsters, they don't have to be birds or even especially bird-like. Like anything could do this. Nobody is safe.
You're welcome. Yes.
So I've seen a bunch of different good ideas for ways to incorporate this behavior into certain monsters. For my money, I think you should go with harpies, because they're already bird-themed. They already have the luring song that makes you walk towards them. And I really like the idea of like a smaller, like gnome-sized harpy that's like fluffy and silly.
Gnome-sized shrike harpies that's big. All right, I think after this round, we should get back to our slides for a minute, but oh my God, I love how many people are sharing stuff with us, yes.
Two things actually
yes.
now. The first one is predator-wise, dragonflies. 97% kill ratio on their hunts, so highest of anything.
Dragonflies are excellent.
But following up on the idea of the dragon variation, weirvins are already poisonous or venomous, and that can be used as external digestion process to keep the body light so they can fly, which would work with the shrike setup. So they poison them, they hang them, and they wait for it to digest so they can eat it without having to have the extra organs to digest inside.
Ooh. Slurp it out just like a straw.
God, so true, I guess.
I think you're next.
Yeah. Do larger predator birds fly with their prey? Like, for example, would a large shrike be able to fly and impale as a form of killing and not have to have the talons or claws or teeth? Beak.
I'm afraid I didn't hear all of the words in that question.
Yeah, flying with live prey and dropping them. So there are some birds that drop prey to get in, like to eat them, but
these are shellfish eaters.
Yeah, shellfish eaters, or legendarily, how was it Aristotle was supposed to have died, or one of them? One of the Greeks had a turtle supposedly dropped on his head because the birds like to drop turtles on rocks, and he was bald, and it looked rocky. But they do this. They have pretty good aim. So one could think, like, if seabirds can drop shellfish and turtles and whatnot onto a rock and have pretty good aim with that, dropping onto spikes is not that far-flung, so go for it.
I mean, animals only kill their prey before eating it if they have to in order to eat it. Like, they don't, it's not a mercy thing. It's just
convenient.
It's just because they have to. And if they don't have to, they won't.
My thing's just a catchphrase. Impaling's not just for Vlad.
So true.
One last thing is, like a group or like a tribe of Aarakocra that is just like they circle over you and like, oh no, like the scouting troop has found us, and then the adventurers just start getting nailed in the head.
So true.
They need to drop their turtle.
Oh, right.
So this one is more of a plot hook than like a dungeon beastie. But I love a plot line in a story where the adventurer's own actions catch up with them, especially if the consequences have gotten larger proportionally since whatever deed was committed. Okay, show of hands, I feel like it's gonna be a lot of you. Who here has read about the paper with the masks and the crows? Yeah.
We have found our ideal audience, thank you. You are supposed to be here.
Yeah, so I think maybe 3 or 4 people didn't raise their hands, so we can go through it pretty quick.
This was my Halloween video last year, actually. Because, dressing up in masks and scaring a bunch of animals, that's basically trick-or-treating, just for us, the animals are also us. Anyway.
It's also the methodology of this study is they had, some crows were captured and banded, which is annoying, while they were wearing sort of the evil masks, and then there were other,
humans were wearing evil masks.
Yes.
The crows were not.
They were crows. They were naked, probably. Before the banding. And then there were, neutral masks also because they wanted to make sure that the crows wouldn't just start attacking people in masks. So they also had people wearing other sorts of mask kind of come along. The other reason for this was they didn't want to make anyone suddenly be hated by all the crows in town as part of this experiment. So you can just use your face, and also if there was different experimenters, they could still have a same face and get recognized. And the neutral mask was a Halloween mask of former Vice President Dick Cheney. And yeah, there was political masks because they needed to look as much like a regular guy as they could. Mm-hmm. The evil one might have been a Nixon, you said?
I don't remember. I think it was a Nixon mask.
Yeah, it was Nixon and Cheney were the evil and neutral masks, and yeah, they, upside down, it didn't matter. The crow would turn upside down.
Which has had devastating effects on crow politics ever since. But the thing about this study that was always crazy was not just that they could recognize the mask, but that when they went back multiple years later, more crows attacked them than they did when they had just done the annoying thing. So every year it about doubled.
Yeah,
as a percentage of randomly encountered crows.
So they can describe a face to one another, like a crow wanted poster.
The person who cracks crow language is going to get a Nobel Prize. So there's your homework assignment, I guess.
So, your level 1 adventurers can deal with, some crows stealing a very shiny object from one of the players and tossing it to each other in a tree, and how the players handle that could be such an interesting recurring theme for the rest of their lives. Go on.
When you read on how scientists interact with wildlife, you realize humans are the fake creatures to the rest of nature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do really weird, out of context shit.
Yeah, what if an alien abducts you, gives you some fancy jewelry and a snack, and then lets you go next to your house?
No, literally, it blows my mind when people feed sharks beef because they will never experience it ever again. There's no context for it.
It's like the medieval kids, Sour Patch Kids.
I've always thought, ever since I first learned about corvid behavior, being able to recognize people and stuff, this would make a really cool concept for a magic system where there's just sort of ambient magical spirits or something everywhere. They're pretty simple animal level intelligence, but smart enough that they can recognize people. So some people could gradually get the magic spirits to recognize this person, or oh, if they do this motion, that means they'll get a treat if they make a fireball over where they're pointing or something like that. So you're gradually over time knowledge of you spreads throughout the population, and they get I just think this would be such a cool idea. I don't know where I would implement it, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. 2 more and then slides time.
So I don't know if you know of, there's a bee called the bald-faced hornet.
I don't know him.
Yeah, I don't know this either.
It's local. It's in Pennsylvania. It's all over the place. They kind of look like yellow jackets, but they're white instead of yellow. And they recognize people's faces as well. So
And you
they
said-
will,
No.
if you harm one of them, they will, every single time you come near the nest, all of them will attack you over and over and over again. And it spreads, well, I don't know that it does spread to other nests. I know that inside the one nest, they all know faces.
Bald-faced hornet?
Well, I just wrote
And they're a bee, but they're called hornet?
Well, no, they're a hornet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wrote down bald-faced hornet knows faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun thing to discover in a year out of context. Yes.
Interspecies communication question. So like, you know, you give a crow food and that crow may or may not give you a shiny rock later. Are there other like interesting examples of interspecies communication that would be cool to explore maybe in a game?
Crows understand a really upsetting number of words, actually. They recognize more words than we thought, like hearing.
I don't know this story. Go on.
Oh, I do not remember. I was reading a paper about it, and I don't remember where it was, so sorry. But they do, they can cue on voice, like on your tone of voice, like tell if you're talking trash or being nice to them. And apparently, yeah, like.
I had that skill.
You know, people talk enough around. Yeah, they can, there's more intelligibility human to crow than crow to human by a lot. I mean, there's definitely, I really always find fascinating and a little bit horrifying the way that animals that start to become a little domesticated start to mimic human infants crying.
Yeah.
There's something there, right, where cats don't meow to each other in that register in the wild.
So this was one of my first thought was something to do with like the natural selection process of domestication, the way that like animals that are sort of that come together due to some ecological shift, like one of them becomes better at hunting, invents complex tool use, and then suddenly they've got surplus bones that the wolves like to hang out and eat, and if you're a less scary wolf, you're less likely to starve by hanging around with humans. So that was my first thought. My second thought was there are definitely instances of, I guess there's three thoughts. One of them is animals recognizing the warning calls of other animals. So this isn't like intentionally a communication across species. It's supposed to be a communication to other members of the same species, but like other prey animals within the same ecosystem will get to know the warning call of like a meerkat, for example. So something that starts accidental and then maybe becomes two-way communication. And third, mimicry, which is common in birds for a bunch of different reasons. That could be a sort of evolutionary pathway to interspecies communication.
Shout out to birds for sponsoring this presentation.
Yeah, did you know that birds? Okay, we have, I see you coming up, but we have to tell some more stories, I'm afraid.
Because we got some.
I'm not
and
afraid,
we
but I
are
don't.
75% of the way through, but we'll get you back eventually.
Yeah.
All right. So, birds have featured very heavily thus far. That's because birds are frequently smart, frequently weird, and the way that they're smart is very different from the way our brains work, so they do a lot of stuff that is just alien to us. Not every animal is smart. Sometimes, even a very occasionally clever animal has an instinct that is so hardwired into its brain that it's kind of once started impossible to suppress, and even it doesn't matter if the stimulus is still around, it'll keep doing it, and also you can have something that is not found in nature. Oh, I was not supposed to show this yet because I had a story. Let's do the story first. So, you have been contacted by a local merchant whose ships keep getting mysteriously attacked, destroyed, in his most, in his most profitable shipping route. The first couple didn't come back. One limped back. It said it was a monster, not pirates, as has been initially assumed. This merchant, he just upgraded his whole fleet, given them shiny new paint jobs. He's like, please, we can't have this.
And it's weird because he's not the only merchant who uses this shipping route.
Yeah, it's only this guy.
But only this guy is getting his ships attacked.
Yeah, so you go out on his boat, and sure enough, As you're crossing through kind of a rocky strait, a dark shape appears under the water, rising, and thunk! And just something is attacking your boat. Another boat goes by, no problems. And you are getting just got. And, you know, maybe you fight the whatever it is for a little bit, you're attacking it, and so this fish, enraged, jumps out of the water, and you see its bright red belly.
The same color that this merchant had just started painting the bottoms of his ships.
So red-bellied sticklebacks attack things that are round and red. They do not have to be fish.
They have this instinct because it motivates them to do territory protecting and intraspecies conflict. But
they attack other males on sight and aggressively. And the cool thing about this pattern of thing, which is one of the things that I messaged you about early on, is a fixed action pattern. So sometimes it sort of proportionally scales with the strength of the stimulus. So if the term is a supernormal stimulus, something that wouldn't be found in nature, they do like an excessive version of the behavior. So like they attack red bouncy balls with more ferocity than competitor males. It also, so this is the things that make it a fixed action pattern. They do it, it's the same every time they do it. It's several steps. It's iconic to a specific species.
It's like how anime girls are shaped like human, but more.
And then once it's started, removing the thing won't stop them from doing the rest of the motion, and they don't have to have prior experience. So, red-bellied stickleback fish were one of the first species that was really written about. The other one is gray-lag geese. Gray-lag geese will, if there's anything vaguely round near their nest, retrieve it like it's an egg. And it's this whole, they lean forward and they scoop it. And if you take the egg, when they're reaching for it, they still do the rest of the scoop and push like it was still there, like a pantomime. And they do it with doorknobs. If there is a wine merchant who keeps wondering why his wine casks keep going missing over this mountain range, because every time they go by, this rock just kind of knocks them over, maybe try square barrels. I really just wanted to talk about the fishes. We're doing okay on time. Gotta not get we've talked a lot about behaviors. One other driver of adaptation and way to kind of reflavor monsters would be changing its habitat.
So a lot of animals are adapted to living among trees and to making their homes in or among trees or in and among rock shelters, because those are very easy places to hide, to get away from predators, and to keep your young safe when they are, even if they are going to grow up to be fearsome predators, when they're too little to be the biggest, baddest guy in the ecosystem. But then if this evolutionary lineage ends up on an open plain, if your evolutionary lineage ends up on an open plain, suddenly burrowing is kind of the only way of making a safe shelter. And this happens in so many different animal lineages. There was even a group of non-bird dinosaurs that became burrowers. They lived in what would become the United States. They're really cute. Orictodromeus and Fauna are the taxa. You don't need to remember that, but just know that they existed. And owls. Owls are usually arboreal, right? So hear us out.
Oh, it's not up yet. Well,
So what if prairie owlbears?
Like a cat-sized ankle biter, and there's a dozen of them.
Holes in the ground with all of their friends.
We just found some facts about the behaviors of burrowing owls that we would like you to imagine owlbears doing. First, when they're angry and agitated, they bob their heads up and down. Those guys. Also, they go in their holes and then make rattlesnake noises to scare away predators. And actually, the thing that we were just talking about, where like sometimes it doesn't matter if the stimulus is the actual thing, something's very hardwired. This works on a lot of small mammal predators. They hear the snake noise and just, nope, they're gone. So
Like even if they know it's not a snake?
Yeah.
Huh, cool.
It's a reflex. Like have you walked with me and my dog when something moves like a snake and he just so sorry. And he just like levitates.
He does that.
Yeah. He's not consciously doing that. It's just
he doesn't have to think it's a snake.
Also sometimes they sort of get up and chase their prey on foot like a little ambush predator, and their legs are weirdly long.
Yeah, this is weirder if you know like stuff about owls. Owls are very like flight predators mostly.
Yeah.
Swoop in from the sky. So the fact that there are owls that chase their prey on foot is odd and interesting.
Yes.
So burrowing owls have really long legs compared to other owls because they mainly on the ground instead of flying, and their legs are also mostly featherless because they do this as compared to other birds. So your owlbears would have to have relatively longer legs that are also featherless and be really leggy.
Yeah, I am kicking myself for not putting a picture of how freakishly long their legs are in the slides because it's hilarious. Okay, and then I am gonna ask you guys to hang tight for a second because we have one more content-y slide and 10 more minutes, so we can have questions and hangouts. So burrowing animals is cute when they're animals, but also the coolest thing about burrows is they change the landscape.
Yeah, they change the landscape, sometimes in bizarre and interesting ways. So for decades, excavators in the American West even, were finding these weird spiral blocks of stone. They called them devil's corkscrews. This structure had this name for a long time before they had any idea what was going on or why these things existed. And then they found the fossil giant extinct beaver dead at the end of its tunnel, which was one of these spiral structures.
And these guys, the real world devil's corkscrews are like the height of a guy, right? All told. Burrows for a regular, like big, but not like a badger mole from Avatar big, just like big.
But there have been animals on Earth, very recently in fact, that humans interacted with, and in fact interacted with to the extinction of these animals probably, that made burrows so large that you can stand up in them. There are these, this is relatively new research. We couldn't find any pictures of this that weren't like copyrighted and stuff. But yeah, paleo burrows in like South and Central America from giant ground sloths are enormous. There's pictures of like, you'll have a grown man standing up in it and it's like his height again to the top of the thing. Like claw marks all over the walls. Dungeon idea.
Yeah. What if you find a cave and you're going down and it's that shape? And different levels have been inhabited by different monsters, right? Obviously, the first one, you've got like the kobolds and they've booby-trapped, hell out of it. And then and you get further and further down and then, oh, wow, there's dire ancient beavers and they hibernate for 30 years. And
you just made this one
about
mad.
that time, and now he's snacky, hangry, and you woke him up early. But also, look up the pictures of the sloth tunnels and think about the secret tunnel song from Avatar. It's a good time.
They're so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and yeah, so I think that's the slides, so we can come back up for questions and fun facts and anything else for the last couple minutes here. Astrid, tell us again where we can find you.
Okay, so Instagram, Astrid_Lundberg. YouTube, Astrid Lundberg, maybe there's an underscore. Look me up and you'll find me. Also, oddpride.com. I am OddPride on Blue Sky, and I am Astrid_Lundberg on Threads. Definitely follow me on not TikTok, because sadly TikTok might be going away forever.
And when is the podcast episode coming out?
February. I'm going to be making an appearance on the Common Descent Paleontology podcast for their yearly history episode on the anniversary of Charles Darwin's birthday, and I'm going to be talking about, not Darwin, but the messiest man in 19th century paleontology.
All right. And
Irene, where can we find you?
Yeah.
Where can they buy your book?
Yeah, you can find me on the internet, Space Job on Blue Sky and TikTok. You also can find my game, Scurvy Buggers, if you would like to do enemies to lovers arcs as pirates in the Golden Age of Piracy. If you liked Our Flag Means Death and are bummed about no Season 3, we have Season 3 at home. And
it's different every time you play it.
And it's like not very much money, so what if gay pirates? Thank you.
Ooh. Also, because we are OddPride and Space Job, we are collectively Odd Job, I think. And I'm like, it's tragic that nobody has said that but me, so.
Yeah. All right.
There you go.
Let's alternate.
Hi, thank you for the panel. So we talked about the Shrike Aarakocras and we talked about the whiptail lizard folk. I would like to present you with another D&D creature from the sea now, like a Lakotha or a Kwatoa, and have it be like a clownfish or like a wrasse. What they do is they have this interesting thing where I think they all start off female, and then once they find like the largest one in the group, they release a bunch of hormones in the water, and one of them has this dramatic transformation into a male.
Yeah, they're sequential hermaphrodites. It's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right.
I just wanted to ask if either of you ever heard of the Codex Inversus, which is kind of a book world building project about like incorporating magical elements into like living creatures.
No, Codex
Inversus.
Okay. Thank you.
And one of the things about the burrowing is there's a species in there called, I think they're like abjurer termites. And if you've ever seen like those big like termite towers.
Yeah.
The idea is they kind of build them into the shape of these big three-dimensional like kind of sigils to reinforce them magically.
That's wild. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first thing was me just imagining like the fantasy version of Carl Hyacint's Hoot, but with burrowing owlbears. Like they're trying to build a tavern, but the burrowing owlbear.
Owlbear conservation side plot, yeah.
Yeah. And then just thinking about the percentage of dungeon enemies that are ambush predators. It's a lot.
We love them.
I'm just curious on your thoughts on what a cave system would look like for the petrified/fossilized corpse of a mimic. Because we hear of like houses made of mimics, but what if it was a dead mimic that was the cave system? What are mimics made of? What's the biology of a mimic?
Mollusks don't love to fossilize except the shell.
Yeah, so what kind of animal is a mimic?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and there's not, I always think of them more, not mollusks, I think of them more as the, like octopuses, yeah.
Which is a mollusk.
Right, that's what I meant. Yes, okay. I was just immediately thought clams for some reason. No, yeah. I think of them as octopus-like, which might mean that fossilizing is hard.
Yeah, they could though.
And you just find a beak, but it's like a really big beak, and you're like, did this guy have a really big beak, or was he enormous?
Did you know Megalodon is only known from teeth?
Yeah. Could be a guy with big teeth.
Just a regular one. Yes.
Oh, that was loud. So I just wanted to point out, like, ground sloths, they're amazing. We have found, like, American cheetahs in their burrows.
Yeah.
And it's so cool how their burrows have helped to fossilize other animals from their time.
Yeah.
That's all.
Incredible.
Burrow fossils are so
Yeah.
cool. All of them.
Two quick things. One, there's a book of extinction that Mage Hand Press is selling, where it's basically all these extinct animals, where they first put a stat block for the animal, and then they reimagine it as a mystical animal. The dodo is the dodo. It's very fun. They have a copy of it at their booth. The second, I want to propose that Could the Underdark be a spiral burrow for a very, very large animal beneath the grounds? It'd be a quite interesting adventure for someone to go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd read that book.
I just wanted to share one of my favorite animal facts, which is insects that have their predator's predator on their wings to scare away the predator.
We
So,
only
like-
talked about eye spots, actually.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming. I was thrilled to see. First, nervous to see how big a room they'd given us, and then thrilled to see how many people showed up and sat in these many, many seats.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, welcome Astrid to her first PAX Unplugged, because we're... Thank you.
Thank you.